Welcome to a brand new week. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy Pot of Gold Day to everyone but Ryan Day. Hope you're having a great day out there.
Well played.
In IB land today. How are you,
Well
Vince?
played. I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Got to wear the green today. I was telling you beforehand, I still have children at the age where I still get pinched if I don't wear green.
Oh, yes. I remember those days.
I had to wear green today. And of course, working in a school, it's funny because, at the high school level, I think the teachers get into it way more than the actual students do. It's not like elementary, but there are some teachers, man, that are all in. They're all in on the holidays, man.
Green, like wearing their. Do any of them wear like the leprechaun hat?
Yes.
The Matt McGraw leprechaun hat out there.
Yes, all of that, all of the above. I fall into the cat. So you've got your people that don't participate at all. You got your people that are like way overboard.
And
then you got people like me that are just looking for any excuse to wear jeans and a hoodie to school. Like
seriously, right?
That's where I'm at. Like, hey, I'll throw on green if I can wear jeans. Let's go.
I was lucky I remembered it was St. Patrick's Day this morning. I think Jesse was here this weekend. His birthday is Wednesday. And so he was in town this weekend, and we're doing his birthday. And I think he brought it up last night, and it was like, damn, that's right. It is St. Patrick's Day today. So
because your son and my son both have birthdays within a couple of days of each other. So.
They do. When is Dylan's? Has Dylan already had his?
Yeah, it was on Saturday.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Okay.
Which, the Ides of March, that's how I remember it. And,
Gotcha.
I am now officially the parent of an adult. And I don't know how you felt when that happened to you. It's a little disconcerting. I'm not going to lie to you. It's weird. It's very strange.
Yeah. I mean, I guess once he started driving, like that was kind of, you know what I mean?
Freedom and all that. Yeah.
Having the vehicle and all that.
That's a good point.
Kind of good stuff. I saw Julius Jones Jr. got an offer on Pot of Gold Day.
Serious?
Talk about feeling old. Like, I didn't realize there was a Julius Jones Jr. And to hear that there was one, like...
When was he at Notre Dame? Because I feel like he was at Notre Dame when I was in college.
I want to say around 03, 04-ish, like 02, 03, 04, like in that range.
Yeah. He was obviously,
he was obviously a Dallas Cowboy after that. He's what
is that? 8 months younger than me. So that tracks, man. Like,
man, no kidding.
That tracks. The fact that Julius Jones is 43 years old definitely kind of puts some things into perspective. There's no doubt about that. But the fact that he has a kid that's a couple years younger than mine means he got started having kids after I did. So
true.
Yeah, that's wild.
He's a 2027.
Okay.
What I saw. Wow. So we'll talk a little Pot of Gold and the Ohio State experience and rapid fire.
Yes.
In a little bit. We got a lot of Notre Dame women's basketball to talk about. Of course, NCAA tournament draw came out Sunday night. Notre Dame is a 3 seed in the tournament. They are. We'll get into that. They will host first and second round NCAA tournament games for the third straight year. They're going to play Stephen F. Austin in the first round Friday. Just saw on the ESPN website within the last hour, 2:00 Friday afternoon. The Michigan game against the play-in winner is going to be at 11:30 a.m. Friday. So,
wow.
Have
so
fun.
No night games. No night games at Notre Dame. These are all during the day games. Okay. Gotcha.
I like it.
Well, I know you
these.
do.
I like these afternoon tournament games.
Nobody wants a 9:00 start. Okay.
Got that right.
Nobody wants that one.
I scrolled through and I didn't see him the first scroll through. And I'm like, don't tell me it's going to be an 8:00 game. And then I never saw him and I scrolled back. 2:00. Yes. I love it.
Yeah. The hot debate in my house now is going to be who gets to go with grandpa. Because school.
You need a lottery for that sucker.
I know.
You need a lottery.
I know. So yeah, there's a I'm not going to say who
it
is.
There's a lot of like you can kind of dangle. I guess that out
well,
there.
There's going to be
them, right.
There's going to be some things that come into play, right? Who's got better grades. Who has been putting the time in all season going to games.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? All those things come in.
Are you angling for yourself in this? Are you going to nudge your kids out? Is that what you're doing right now?
I mean, I would love to go, but I will not be. I will be at school. but yeah, there's some things we got to figure out. There's some things we got to figure out. So
Andre was tweeting at me earlier, and Joe is asking about brackets this year. I think Jesse had said something about setting up brackets.
We did do it last year.
No brackets set up. I saw someone made a post on the Champions Lounge about, hey, what if we did it? And IB put up a little bit of, swag for
merch
prize or something. And I noticed the boss never responded to that.
Well, he's the one in charge of the merch. So we can't.
I know.
I'm not putting my foot in my mouth, not putting my size 12s in my mouth on this one and saying that merch is going to be available.
Yeah.
But I can very easily set up an IB, deal, and we can have everybody in there. So we may have to do that. That may have to happen. But yeah.
I think Mike Huff might have, he said he's talking about Notre Dame in the 3 seed. He said they beat almost all the 1 and 2 seeds this year. That's funny to me. They should have been a 2 instead. So Mike just solved the whole show. We can just go home. We don't have to talk about it anymore.
Throw it down.
It's done. That's the answer, right?
I'm out. See ya.
I know. Oh, he's gone. Oh, he's back. So Notre Dame, of course, was in play just a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, to possibly be the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah.
And now here they are. They are a number 3 regional seed. They still seem to be in good position for a 2 seed, but showed up as the 3 in the Birmingham 3 region when the field was unveiled last night. So afterwards, I posted a poll on Twitter X asking your thoughts on Notre Dame being the number 3 seed. Here were the options. 1, they was robbed. Number 2, they got what they deserved. 3, let's go. And number 4, what's a seed? So they was robbed. Number 1 response, 41%.
Just saying.
They got what they deserved was 31%. Let's go was 24%. So people are just fired up. Like, let's go, man. Let's do this. What's a seed got 4%?
That's hilarious.
I know.
By the way.
I knew someone would vote on that. But
I was torn between they was robbed and let's go. Like those are the two that I was in between. I ended up going with they was robbed.
Okay.
Because they were. I mean, when you put it down on paper, they were robbed. I mean, I didn't even watch the men's reveal because I just don't care that much. But I
didn't either. But honestly, we had a lot of time to kill waiting for 8:00 to roll around.
There's no doubt.
And we were like, Jesse was opening birthday presents and we did cake and all that different kind of stuff. So
it's, it's funny. Why did the women's stuff, the women's tournaments, the conference championships and all that stuff, obviously those ended a week ago. And then they just sit on, the reveal for a week for the women. And then they're still the second show at 8:00. They should have done that.
They could have done the show like Saturday night.
Anytime before they did.
Yeah, could have done it at noon, maybe even.
Yes.
Because the men's games weren't starting until 1:00. That's actually why didn't they just do the
lead in,
like a
wonderful lead in?
Yeah.
Because once the men's bracket, and I hate that this is true, but it is. Once the men's bracket is released, unless you have a specific reason to watch the women's reveal, people are just worried about the men's bracket now. They're all figuring out what.
Then you're going on to Sunday night primetime, HBO, whatever,
all that stuff. So it's like. I didn't understand the placement of the women's reveal.
I concur,
but
it's an excellent point. Like I think, and remember, it wasn't within the last couple of years they were making them wait until Monday. Like they were doing it on a completely different day, and they just
everything was a day
Sunday.
Shifted
exactly, which is stupid as well because again, like 90% of the conference tournaments were already done,
right?
And it was just like a handful of small conference women's tournaments that were being played last week.
Right.
But they did make them wait. So your reaction was definitely they was robbed. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because they obviously struggled in the ACC tournament. I mean, they won the first game that they had, not by a whole lot. It was a bit of a struggle to get there, but they won. At the end of the day, that's what matters. And then, of course, they lost to Duke in the final.
That team they struggled against beat NC State, by the way.
That's a very good point. No, that's a very good point. But I
And
still
they
think
beat,
Notre
they
Dame
beat that Cal team. Notre Dame beat the Cal team twice. That Cal team beat NC State.
And the problem is people look at it and they're like, well, they beat Cal by 30 or whatever it was the first time around. And then
39 to be exact.
There you go. They struggled the second time around, right? On neutral
Right.
floor.
Right.
But still, I don't care. Okay. That's the bottom line. Like, they did enough for their entire resume. And I know you've got stats and figures that I did not even look at on purpose because I don't want to steal any thunder that's coming from your down under.
It's all right.
But I just feel like, the 19-game win streak, some of the big dogs that they took down.
And who they beat in the win streak.
Correct.
Let's be honest.
Why are we not looking at the big picture and only looking at the last 2 weeks?
That's exactly it to me. And like when you listen to Derita Dawkins, the committee chair, it just sounds like they put far too much weight on what happened in the last 3 to 4 games rather than what happened over the course of a 4-month season. Like
right.
that's what it like. And if you look at this specifically, because like it just feels like, okay, yeah, did Duke and NC State have head-to-head wins over Notre Dame? Sure, but Notre Dame also beat Duke, right? And NC State played other games, and at the end of the day, Notre Dame had the number 5 overall net ranking in the nation, right? And that was ahead of both of those. I mean, they were ahead of all the other number 2 seeds, or all the number 2 seeds. Notre Dame had a better net ranking than all but UConn, essentially. Like they had a better net ranking than all of them, and NC State had a number 16 net ranking. Like, you really had to do some gymnastics to swing a number 16 net ranking into a number 2 seed ahead of a team that has beaten 2 of the number 1 seeds and 2 of the number 2 seeds when you include Duke in there. Because again, they split, but it just feels like the committee did not even factor in the fact that it's not just that Duke beat Notre Dame, they split 2 games against each other.
Yeah.
And that's the head scratcher to me. And like, is it fair to point out that Notre Dame lost 3 of its last 5 games? Sure. Right?
Sure.
But it's also fair to point out that Auburn on the men's side lost 3 of its last 4 games. And not only did they end up being a number 1 seed, they are the overall number 1 seed in the men's bracket, losing 3 of their last 4 games, going into the tournament. So it's just, granted, different committees, men's and women's. And so they're going to, you would think though, that their criteria is not supposed to be that different. So it was bizarre to me, just what you said. And I think Mike said it in here as well. Goes to show the committee will seed based on a few games.
It's recency bias at its finest. I mean, that's what it is to me. I mean, look, this team was the number 1 team in the country less than a month ago, and now they're the 3 seed. Like that, it just doesn't jive with the way the season went, with the games that were won, the way things were played. And that 19-game win streak, that was not, I mean, there were not a lot of close games in there, right? I mean, it was a lot of blowouts. It was a lot of Notre Dame just pounding their opponents. And
that includes a win over a number 1 seed, granted in overtime, Texas.
Still.
But it also includes a double-digit win over another number 2 seed in UConn.
And they beat USC, I believe, right?
Well, that wasn't part of the win streak, though.
But I
was just saying, like, the win streak included
part of the streak. Yeah.
Because it went USC, Cayman Islands debacle, and then win streak.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I know that I'm a biased Notre Dame fan. And when it comes to women's basketball, I'm a fan over an analyst. I will be the first one to admit it. But I can also read. And when I'm looking at what on paper, and that's what it should be. There should be no bias when it comes to the way that these teams are being seeded and put into the tournament and all of that. It should be on paper. And on paper, Notre Dame is not a 3 seed. Right? They're a solid 2 seed. They're not even a bubble 2 seed. They are a solid 2 seed. And I get them coming off the number 1 line. That's fine. Like they had that, like somebody said in here that, they had their destiny in their own hands and they blew it. okay, they had their destiny as a 1 seed in their hands and they blew that. Okay, fine. You can make that argument and you would be right. But they don't belong any lower than a 2. And I don't care how the season ended. The way the full body of work that they put in,
and that's the thing,
is a
because
2
again,
seed.
like that argument that you're saying, and again, I get it. I get that argument. But as I just said, you also have the men's side where the number 1 overall seed lost 3 of its last 4 games going into the tournament.
There you go.
There's really not much different between losing 3 of 4 and 3 of 5, right? Like percentage wise, 3 of 5 is actually better than 3 of 4.
And you should not weigh, like, okay, I just want to throw this out here from Salty, okay? Because he says, I have no problem with weighting a team's seed according to recent play. The team that gets hot should probably be a higher seeded than otherwise, and vice versa. I could not disagree with that more. So you're telling me that if a 500 team won their last 10 games, that they should be a high seed in the NCAA tournament? That makes no sense to me.
And they took out that last 10, last 10 used to be one of the criteria, but they took that criteria out. It's supposed to be body of work. But, because again, like part of Notre Dame's resume is the fact that they have wins over USC and Texas and UConn. Now, granted, I get it, like it's been like going on 3 months ago since those things happened, but those still happened in this season. And you are in this tournament now at the end of this season. It is part of this season. So those are still factors. And even again, like, well, I'll go ahead and play this first from Derita Dawkins. She this was at the end of the ESPN selection show. Which, by the way, like you talk about making us wait all day, and then they jibber jabber at the start of the show, before they even get into it. And then they get into it, and there's like 3 minutes at the end of the show for any actual analysis for anything that happened. And it's like, okay, the show's over. We'll see you later. All right. Well, but they had the committee chair on last night. This is her with Holly Rowe asking the question at the end about Notre Dame being a 3 seed.
Questions we had when we glanced at the bracket was Notre Dame. They are an ACC co-champion. They dropped to a 3 seed. How did you break down how Notre Dame ended up at a 3?
Well, being a little bit of a research nerd, I'm going to use a term. It was an interaction effect. It wasn't just what happened with Notre Dame in terms of them losing 3 of 5 down the stretch, but it was also what the teams that came out ahead of them did in their conference tournaments and winning their tournaments. So again, an interaction effect between those two things.
Right. It wasn't just what they did in losing 3 of 5. It's what other teams did to elevate their resume as well, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Don't put words in her mouth. She wasn't doing a very good job of explaining it.
No, I know. I
on.
love the long pause before she even got into the answer. Like, you weren't prepared for, you were going to get that question. So it's an interaction effect. But again, listening to her response, she's basically saying things that happen in the conference tournament. It's almost like they put 50% on that. Like that was 50% of the criteria. What happened in a span of 3 or 4 days rather than over the course of an entire season. There was just, to me, it just seemed like way too much weight was placed on what happened in those conference tournaments.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the conference tournament means almost nothing to me, to be honest with you. If you're a highly ranked team and maybe you don't do well in the conference tournament, I don't care, because you've got 3 months of resume right there in front of you. What happens in a 2-day stretch, that doesn't mean anything to me. Like, it means something. It's an opportunity. Honestly, what is a conference championship tournament to you, Sean? To me, this is an opportunity for maybe some teams that are on the bubble,
right?
Or whatever,
to try to work their way toward the bubble.
It is a
team that has no shot, like NC State on the men's side last year, had no shot going into their conference tournament. Their only shot was to win the whole thing.
And they did.
And that's exactly
how they got in, right?
Yeah.
It is a lose-lose for teams like Notre Dame, who is the co-conference champion during the regular season. All they can do is something worse. If they don't win it all, it was a disappointment. Like, I wish they could just opt out. You know what I mean? Like, why even, it's the football argument, right? Why are these teams doing the conference championships? Because it's a lose-lose scenario for a lot of these teams, right? It's the same thing for Notre Dame. They would have been better off not even participating in the ACC tournament.
And again, just like Notre Dame on the women's side, Auburn on the men's side lost in the conference tournament semifinals, and again, still ended up being the number one overall seed on that side. So, and I don't, again, I don't think anyone's arguing that Notre Dame deserved to be a number one, even though when you look at body of work, there is still an argument to be made that maybe they did deserve it because of who they beat, and who ended up being number ones, obviously, with those head-to-heads. But at the end of the day, the loss to Florida State is probably a factor in this as well. Not just not getting to the conference championship game, or not winning the conference championship. But I thought it was also interesting because right before Dawkins answered that question in that clip, she was talking about UCLA and Texas and, who deserved the number one overall seed. And she said that being competitive in losses was another criteria for how you were seeded in this, how your seeds came out. NC State, again, a team that ended up with a number 2 seed. NC State lost games this season by 14, 17, 13, and 14 points. 6 losses. They lost 4 of them by at least 13 points. Notre Dame's only double-digit loss was by 11 points to Utah down there.
And that was back in November.
Islands. Right, in November. That's their only double-digit loss this season. Notre Dame has the number 5 net ranking. NC State's is 16. Again, did they beat Notre Dame? Yeah. A double overtime game, 21 ties, 21 lead changes on the road.
Yeah.
And that's the win, but they vaulted NC State from a number 16 net ranking all the way up to a number 2 seed, which means you're in the top 8. So instead of 16 net ranking, they're saying they're one of the top 8 teams. And again, like so much of it is obviously based on what has happened late in the season. NC State's next best win after Notre Dame is Duke. That's it. And again, Notre Dame has wins over USC, a number 1 seed, Texas, a number 1 seed, and UConn, a number 2 seed. And I was trying to think of like who ended up. I think that they were the top number 2 seed out of the bunch. But
because they played in a really competitive Big East too.
And Notre Dame also had double-digit wins against all 3 of those. And USC was obviously on the road. So that's 2 wins over 2 teams that ultimately ended up number 1 seeds, 2 wins over number 2 seeds. Again, full body of work, not just what happened in the last couple weeks. It's just it's fairly baffling.
Yeah, not fairly. It is baffling.
And they have fewer losses than both NC State and Duke as well.
Yeah. I just don't get it because she's talking out of both sides of her mouth too when he's talking about the competitive losses and all of these other things. It just, I don't know. I don't understand the recency bias and the interaction effect. Like, come on, that's a tough pill to swallow if you're Notre Dame. And I will say this: on the actual show itself, they didn't show Notre Dame reacting to their number 3 seed. But then on social media, there was a camera that was there when their seed was announced. They were pissed. And I don't know if you watched it or not, Sean, but they showed them see it. You could hear an audible grumble, and then you see Niele Ivey go, "Hey!"
Yeah, like
she starts clapping, and then everybody else starts clapping.
Exactly, because
that's you want to talk about a sizable chip right here. I think that's only going to serve them well at this point, but still, it doesn't take away from the fact that they got screwed.
Once NC State and Duke both showed up as number 2 seeds, because we were counting like who hadn't been announced yet.
Sure.
And it was like, no, this is not going to end up going well for Notre Dame. There is some silver lining in this that we'll get to in a second. But speaking of Niele Ivey, she was asked after the selection last night her reaction to being a number 3 seed.
Honestly, I'm so excited to play. We had a week off, had some great practices. I always embrace this moment like this is a blessing. We're going to be hosting, like this is big. So excited, ready to get to work.
I mean, this is kind of like, when Marcus Freeman was asked about, would you rather host or have a bye, or, what Notre Dame seed was and all that kind of stuff in the college football playoff. I mean, there's no sense complaining about it.
No,
I remember like Paul Maneri, Hall of Fame baseball coach, his last season at Notre Dame, like they were in the hunt to host a regional in his last season, and they ended up getting sent on the road.
That's right.
They had a great resume, and they got sent to Kentucky. And, as much as I, will always love Paul, he complained about it quite a bit all week. And for the only time that Maneri was at Notre Dame, they went to Kentucky to the regional. They went 0-2, 2-Q. They were out like that. Like as a head coach, everything's got to be a positive. Obviously, there's no sense feeding into the negative. I don't think, around your team.
Look, and honestly, this is the kind of thing that can fuel a run. You know what I mean? And you still get to play at home. That was never going to be a thing. So they were always going to be able to play at home. It was just, who are you going to play, right? And you use this as a good coach. You use this as fuel, and I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman, they did that all season, right? He used that NIU loss as fuel for the rest of the season. And, Niele Ivey only needs to use this as fuel for the next 3 weeks. You know what I mean? And, this team, I feel like, needed a chip. They needed something right now. Going 2-5 to finish off the season is certainly enough, right? That you can use. But this is even more like, okay, nobody believes in you anymore.
Right.
Like nobody believes that Notre Dame is now a Final Four team. And so now you get to try to prove them wrong. And the only people that believe are in this room, and that whole thing. But that is a legitimate thing to say as a head coach, because the proof is right there. I mean, it's right there. Look at all these teams that are ranked ahead of you that you are better than. You beat them. Now go prove it. Doesn't matter. That number next to your name now doesn't matter. Go prove it. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Now, I do want to throw this at you because you are more in line with the grand landscape of women's college basketball because you're in it, right? You're there. And so, like, I know the top teams and I know some of the ins and the outs, but you know it better than I do. So now that it's all said and done, the landscape is there, right? The seeding is there. The regions are set. What is Notre Dame's, how do you feel like their path is compared to what their path could have been as a number 2 or whatever the case may be? Here we are. What's their path? How does it look?
Yeah, so the other regions, UCLA, NC State, LSU, Baylor, those are the top 4 seeds in Region 1. In Region 2, it's South Carolina, Duke, North Carolina, and Maryland. Region 4 is USC, UConn, Oklahoma, and Kentucky. And then Notre Dame's region, Region 3, Texas, TCU, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. And I've seen some people say this, and I completely agree with it, because like as much as, we just spent the last half hour moaning about whether or not they should be, that they should be a 2. And I do think that they deserve to be a 2. This is the silver lining, because there isn't a ton of difference between being a number 2 and a number 3. And, for example, like TCU being the number 2, TCU has a head-to-head win over Notre Dame. But the interesting twist here is they have set up Haley Van Lith, the TCU point guard, potentially going up against her old team, Louisville, and Jeff Walls in the second round if both of those teams win their first round game. So that's, kind of interesting that those two would potentially have to go against each other. But Notre Dame is clearly the best of the 3 seeds. Like when you look, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, North Carolina, a team Notre Dame beat, and LSU. They are clearly the best of the number 3 seeds. And, again, the blessing in disguise is that even though they lost to TCU, I would much rather go through them and then Texas. Great game. Again, a team Notre Dame beat, but an overtime game, very competitive, one of the best games of the season. I would rather have to go through those 2 than USC and UConn, or, Duke, South Carolina, or NC State, UCLA. I think it is a very good path. I mean, basically, you potentially get TCU in the Sweet 16, and then you would potentially play Texas in the Elite Eight. I mean, no matter what, whether you were a 1 or a 2 or, whatever your seed is, there are essentially, when you look at this, there were a total of there are 8 teams, I think, who have a legitimate chance to win the national championship. So you were going to have to go through a really good team in the Elite Eight, no matter what your seed is, even if you were a number 1 seed, And so I like this path a lot better than if they, a lot of people were complaining about the fact, well, why are USC and UConn in the same region? I mean, UConn was going to have to be in the same region with somebody, you know. And USC did beat UConn in a head-to-head this season, but so I think it's a great path for Notre Dame. I like it. I like it.
Well, silver lining. I'll take silver lining. And, now you just play the teams that's in front of you. You got to do what you got to do. And like I said, Niele Ivey is a good coach. She's borderline great coach. She will have this team ready to go. I firmly believe that. Bust out the green nail polish. It's time to go to work. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is how you become a champion. I have a lot of faith in Notre Dame being able to do that.
Jesse chiming in while driving. I noticed a couple typos. So, he said Duke got rewarded for being a 3-day champ rather than a 3-month champ. Duke and Notre Dame split. Notre Dame had better wins, and Duke had 2 more losses. Robbery. They was robbed.
It's not wrong. When you boil it down just that simple, when you're talking about Duke.
DJ said, please don't say Michigan in the second game will be a problem. They won't. Notre Dame will roll these 2 home games. I firmly believe that as well, DJ.
I'm only a little nervous about the 2:00 start for Notre Dame, what the crowd's going to be like and things like that. I mean,
they've had earlier start times. It's Friday. Take a day off. Yeah. Come on. Well,
I'm glad everybody else's job is so flexible. All right. But no, and
no, my wife did say, she's like, well, I'm not going to be able to take the day off if they end up with an afternoon game. So,
but that place will be rocking on Sunday, especially if it's Michigan. Are you kidding me? Oh, let's go. That's going to be fantastic. You kidding me? That's going to be so freaking great. I mean, the draw of Stephen F. Austin obviously is not going to be great, but it's Notre Dame. It's the NCAA tournament. People will come out. And let's be honest, the demographic of people that are out for games usually don't have to worry about going to work on Fridays. So you're going to have lots of people there.
So DJ is disagreeing with my how many teams have a chance.
So
I mean, all the number 1 seeds for starters, that's 4. UCLA, South Carolina, Texas, USC. I think they all have legit chance. Yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, it might only be because I don't think Duke and NC State. See, and that's the thing. Like, if you're the committee, did Duke and NC State have legit chances to win a championship? I don't think so.
Because look,
that's a good point, DJ. Maybe I was a little bit generous. I think you're right. It's 6. It's the 4. I think the 4 number 1 seeds, UConn and Notre Dame, are the 3 that have the best chance.
It's interesting because Notre Dame has shown on numerous occasions that they're good enough to win a championship. You know what I mean? And they've shown that the women on their team, when firing on all cylinders, is one of the best teams in the country, if not the best. Right? They rank number 1 for a reason. They just need to get it all kind of pushing in the right direction at this point. That's the big deal for me.
Now, DJ says USC has no chance. I mean, they did beat UCLA twice, and they had UCLA beat in the Big Ten championship game before UCLA rallied from a double-digit deficit and came back and beat them in that one. Like, if it was the USC team that we saw in November, I would say you're right. But the USC team that we've seen lately, I mean, they do have a win over UConn. They've got 2 wins over UCLA, so I would have to give them, I would have to put them in the mix. DJ says they're too flawed. Okay.
He's not coming off of it. That's
Time
fine.
will tell. Time will tell. We'll see.
So, DJ, my man, who are your 6? Put them in the chat.
Who are your 6 if USC is not one of them? That's what
I'm not pushing back on you, DJ, at all. I'm just curious as to who your 6 are. That's all. I will not push back on you. I do think USC is a pretty darn good team. But if they're not part of your 6,
they are a tad on the hype train. Like, it's like Juju Watkins.
I thought they were very hyped up when Notre Dame beat them down, and that was fun. That was that felt good. When seeing Snoop Lee before the game was over, I was like, that's pretty great. Oh, he revised it to 5, kicking USC out. So there you go.
Kicking UCLA.
So he's saying number 1 seeds minus USC, UConn, Notre Dame, I believe is what he's saying. So
here's what Niele Ivey says she and her team learned about those 3 losses that they took toward the end of the season.
Defensively, we have to lock in. I think that was the area, and they mentioned it kind of on the television. We have to be better defensive-minded team. We showed it all season long. Have come up short this last couple of weeks, and so that's what we've been focusing on. It's what I've personally been focused on, and the team knows, and they responded this past week.
Defense.
She's right.
Starts with defense. That's exactly right.
She's 100% right. And, Hannah obviously had some off games, you know what I mean? And I think each member of the team would probably say they didn't play their best down the stretch, but defense is effort, man. Like defense, you can have an off night shooting. You shouldn't have an off night playing defense. And that was my biggest issue with them down the stretch was the defense. Like just some of those dribble drives and just not being competitive on the defensive end was disheartening at times. Right. And they just couldn't make up for it on the offensive end because they just weren't hitting shots that they normally hit. So, yeah, I'm glad that they're focused on defense. I'm glad they see that as the issue. If they could play good defense, because this is a good defensive team, if they can play good defense, they don't need the offense for another week or 2. Does that make sense? They can come out and play an average offensive game as long as they lock down their defense, and they'll be fine.
Against the 2 opponents they're going to face this week. Yeah. Yeah. Like Stephen F. Austin, they will put up the 3s. So that's going to be the key to that one. They will throw it up. Mark asks if there is a question if NC State's drive to the basket strategy has been solved by Notre Dame. And again, I
hope so.
It's part of what Niele's talking about. That's what she's talking about with the defense. They did play a little more zone against Duke, and we talked about that. The fact that they played as much zone as they did. One of the things that you're susceptible to because of the spacing on the floor in your 2-3 is those, missed shots that are typically going to be rebounded by Leah Tu King, end up kind of falling into open spaces because you're spaced out on the floor. And Duke, as a result, had a lot of second chance points against Notre Dame. And that was a big factor there. They out rebounded Notre Dame, had a lot of offensive rebounds and second chance points. But the zone did cut off some of the drives. There's been better help side defense, I think, as well, when they played man to man. And that's essentially what it's going to take. That's obviously how you cut that off. You just got to be better help defense team. Protect the paint. So Niele Ivey also talked about how the team has used the extra time off since the ACC tournament loss to Duke.
3 to 4 days, they needed to reset mentally, physically, get some rest, and then it was right back to work. I feel like knowing the lessons that we had to learn from this past couple weeks, dropping 3 out of 5 games, very defensive oriented, just back to basics. I think sometimes the game can be more mentally challenging. So the goal was to give them rest so we can mentally recharge, physically recharge, and then get back to work. And that's defensive. That's rebounding defense and really locking in on our principles.
And honestly, I think that is a huge thing as well, just the extra rest that they have, the ability to step away, get a mental reset and a physical reset, kind of let everything recharge and just be away for a few days. And then I saw, some of the stuff on social media, they got back at it after they got back, to campus at the end of last week and had been practicing. And now they've got an opponent to prep for. So
correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
This is the healthiest this team has been all year.
Healthiest all year, and really the last couple seasons.
Yes.
When you think about it.
So
better knock on wood when you say that.
100%. But I mean, because I was thinking about, last year, the year before, they were not healthy going into the tournament, and this year, when she talked about, when Niele Ivey talked about, giving them a few days off to mentally and physically recharge, this is the healthiest this team has been in a long time. And that's exciting because, like I said, when they are hitting on all cylinders, this is a really, really good basketball team. and they have every opportunity to do that. And you've got, Maddie Westbeld and potentially Olivia Miles and Sonia Citron, and Leah Tu King. Like, this is their last NCAA tournament.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I can speak to the fact that, when it's your last, there's a switch that flips to a degree, you know what I mean? And so I have a lot of faith in the leadership on this team, and I think they're going to be ready to go come Friday at 2:00.
Good point, Vince. Good point.
I'm giving myself the bell on that one.
I agree with Jesse. Defense needs to lead the offense, and they'll be okay. Because there was another clip I didn't play. I mean, we know that, like, when Notre Dame is playing the game that it wants to play, their offense starts with the defense. Get the stops, get the rebound, get out and run. 100%. And that's exactly what they want to do. They didn't do that the first time they played TCU, and obviously they weren't able to do that against Duke because Duke was able to essentially control the game with so many of those offensive rebounds. Again, like that impacts Notre Dame's ability. When Duke is grabbing offensive rebounds, that impacts, obviously, adversely Notre Dame's ability to get those boards and get out and run like they wanted to. They weren't able to do that, but they do have to continue to just, what we were talking about with the, cutting off those teams driving to the basket. DJ asked about potential concern for Koval in the tournament. He says, seems like some of the bigger games, she looks a little lost. I will say, when you think back, there was no Maddie Westbeld against Texas. There was no Maddie Westbeld against USC or UConn. Like, she wasn't, she was still injured. She wasn't in those games. And Carlin was just getting back. I think it was the UConn game was Carlin's first game back. So Koval was playing a pretty big role in those games. I think that it's still, this is, part of that defensive presence and, sort of like how you're moving the chessboard around. Like, there's still sort of some figuring out, I think, exactly how that all fits together. But, not to overlook, obviously, anything that happens this weekend. But if they end up in a matchup with TCU, they're going to need Kate Koval because TCU either they're going to need her or they're going to have to go small, and she's not going to play that much because Sedona Prince is 6'7", and she was a huge factor. She's like 99 block shots this season, just south of 100 block shots. She is a rim protector for TCU. So again, like that's down the road, potential Sweet 16, but that's going to be something to answer legit at that point. But I guess my point is Koval has stepped up and been a factor, when they weren't at 100% yet. So I think that she still can be. And to me, like, it seems like she's kind of found herself, like, throw the Duke game out of it because, again, like, who had a great game against Duke? To me, it feels like she's kind of found herself a little bit down the stretch.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. She's been a big part of this team. So
yeah,
I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Yes. All right. So we can stop complaining about seeds and get on with the tournament now, but we all were able to
gotta get it out. We gotta talk about it because it's ridiculous. And yes, this is the whole the ends don't justify the means kind of a conversation, right? Like, the ends, they got a great draw and they had the best draw of all, right? Based on competition and all that. It ended up great. It still doesn't make it okay that there are three. Like, two things can be correct at the same time.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy with the draw and who they have to face and, who's in their region, blah, blah, blah. That's great. But that doesn't justify the fact that there are three. So they could have been a 2 in that region, with the same type of draw. So, like, I just, it's okay to be happy with the draw and still be upset about the seeding. That's what I'll say.
Good final note. I'll just point out that Notre Dame was a 2 seed last year, and they lost to a 3 seed, Oregon State, in the Sweet 16. So
look at you.
I believe UConn was a 3 seed last year as well and got to the Final Four as a 3 seed. So,
yep.
It's not like it's the end of the world. I think that, again, I like the path. I like the draw compared to those other regions. So I think that it's a good question, Salty. Can three things be correct at the same time? I'll say yes.
I will say yes as well. I will.
And I will also say, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Great segue. You're such a pro.
I've been working on it. Been working on my segs all day. Whoop. Hang on. No, accidentally hit something there. I almost ejected myself.
Oh, that would be bad.
Fill in the blank. It's St. Patrick's Day, and that means Pot of Gold Day, of course, for Notre Dame recruiting. And it's blank. Ohio State decided to be the latest to troll Notre Dame by tweeting Happy Pot of Gold Day with 2 photos from the national championship game with 2 Buckeyes players carrying pots of gold coins against the Irish.
It's trollish for sure, but they beat Notre Dame for the national championship. So I mean, it's a low blow. Like it feels very juvenile, but at the same time, you won. To the victor go the spoils. To the victor go the weird edits carrying coins. Like,
I guess so.
I mean, I don't like it as a Notre Dame fan, but they beat you. Like, okay. I mean, it's whatever. I just hope. Here's what I hope. Okay. I hope the next time Notre Dame and Ohio State play that, obviously Notre Dame wins and they return the favor. Let's not be the bigger man, okay? Let's throw it right back at them.
You're all in on the pettiness.
My
You
goodness.
want pettiness coming back. I don't think they would, though.
I am the conductor of the petty train. Let's go. That's where I'm at.
Too much class on one side, too much Ryan Day on the other side. I just feel like it is unnecessarily petulant of Ohio State.
It is.
To do this. You
juvenile.
shouldn't have to act like the redheaded stepchild, specifically with the team you just beat in the national championship game. Like why do you need to go to this length? I'm surprised they didn't just tweet a picture of, like Ryan Day with Lou Holtz in a headlock or something, like Happy Pot of Gold Day. And, put a leprechaun hat on Lou Holtz or something. Jesse actually said this today, though, before he left. It's something Ryan Day would tweet. Like this whole pot of gold thing.
I'm not giving him that much credit. Like I don't like he didn't. Like
he's not that creative. That's a good point.
I don't think so at all. Like I refuse to give him that much credit. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Interesting that Steve Wiltfong, who of course covers recruiting, tweeted this earlier in the day. Notre Dame's Pot of Gold Day is already ripping and roaring, and the top 2027 prospects in the land are buzzing. Notre Dame is the gold standard of college football. This is from an independent recruiting analyst, Steve Wiltfong, saying this. And, maybe they saw that and they felt like, to me,
this is their response.
Yes. And to me, like, I feel like them doing this, like you can say,
that's a good point.
Whatever. It's just, having fun or, whatever you want to say it. Like, I think they're feeling some heat, like they know Notre Dame is a real threat on the recruiting trail now. And like, that's why they're doing this, to try to mock them a little bit. Back at them. So,
I mean, I love Steve. He used to be on the Notre Dame beat. Yep. So, it's like 51%, 49% kind of a thing for me, but that's not his job now. And I do think he is a professional and he's not going to just say things to say things.
Right.
But hey, the pot of gold thing is uniquely Notre Dame, and it always has been. And no other school in the country can say that. And I think it's awesome, right? I mean, that is an inventive way to get those offers out there. I love it. It's just diving into who you are as Notre Dame and just, everything that you are. I think it's great. And the other schools are just, unhappy they don't have it. They don't have one of those kinds of things. And sorry, you don't have it.
That's right. There's not a Buckeye Day that you can have.
There's not. Nobody celebrates.
No one's going to go out and eat a bunch of Buckeyes.
Nope. They're not. The peanut butter ones are good, though.
No, they are.
I'm just saying.
Buckeye's actually pretty tasty. But so a lot of people, speaking of recruiting, are upset Maybe they should have a Buckeye holiday.
I mean,
it's like
just,
there'd be worse holidays to have, I think.
not wrong.
A lot of people are upset that Notre Dame has not reaped any recruiting rewards yet after the college football playoff run to the national championship game 2 months ago. What do you say to that, Vince?
I say you need to be more patient because there's not a lot of 26 guys that were sitting around just seeing who's going to win the national championship and then going with that school. Like, I don't think like you're going to see dividends being paid in the 27 and the 28 class, not the 26 class.
Yeah.
So that's not like recruiting is not an overnight thing. Recruiting is the long game. And if you don't have the patience for the long game, then you're going to be upset about recruiting. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's people out there that I think, as Notre Dame, had a valiant attempt in the national, went to the national championship game, blah, blah, blah. They were expecting like the next week to have a bunch of guys commit to Notre Dame because they were in the national championship.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Not how it works.
You know what I mean? So I just think people are short-sighted. Like you got to play the long game on this one.
And they do have a bunch of studs who are going to be visiting here in the very near future, like this month, like some of that probably is a result of being in the national championship game. And I do think it's also important to remember that, this year, 11 other teams made the college football playoff.
Correct.
So they're all trying to spin being in the playoff to their benefit. It's not just Notre Dame.
Right.
Because that's another aspect of recruiting is everyone is very myopic. All you're doing is looking at what's right in front of you, your own thing, your team. You're not paying attention until, you start getting poached and whatever else. But like what are all these other, what is Boise State doing? Boise State is sure hoping that being in the playoff spins into some, kind of recruiting benefit for them and go on down the line. Arizona State, they hope that they're going to be, sort of the next big thing after doing this. They don't want this to be a one and done. So they're all trying to spin being in the playoff in their favor. And I think that you summed it up best, though. It is a long game in recruiting. It's not just right now.
I just love how people just get so bent out of shape when it comes to recruiting. It's like, take a breath, everybody. Just relax. Just relax. It's okay. It's okay.
You got any receivers over there yet?
I know, right? I'm hiding them in the basement. They're here. Don't worry.
Yeah. With your pot of gold and the leprechauns. And
right.
Buckeyes.
Right.
I have to see if my wife can make some Buckeyes for this weekend. Maybe.
Oh, see, now I got you into it.
I know. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Jeff Jackson's career has come to an end after 19 seasons as Notre Dame hockey coach.
It's bittersweet. I think Jeff Jackson is an excellent hockey coach, right? And I think he's proven that time and time again at Notre Dame, Frozen Fours and all of these different things. I think he's an excellent hockey coach. But I also think at some point it's time for some new blood, right? The entire staff at Notre Dame, or at least the two guys that are really in charge, which is Coach Pooley and Coach Jackson, it's time to turn the page. Like, it's okay. Again, two things can be correct at the same time. You can still appreciate the job they did at Notre Dame, but it's time to turn it over to kind of the next generation. And I think that's still accurate, right? They didn't have a great season this year. I don't know enough about hockey to say that the game is passing him by. I'm not going to go there, but I will say the proof is in the standings and the record and all of those different things. And I know that they're a young team, this year, and they got that great win last weekend over Minnesota. That's a great parting gift for Jeff Jackson.
Yeah, it was it was a pretty nice high note to be able to pull off kind of an upset like that.
Right.
Late in the season when you weren't supposed to.
And Coach Jackson, Coach Pooley, like in my other job, I had to deal with all the coaches on campus. They were always amazing. You know what I mean? And I'm really hoping that they bring somebody in, that to deal with that's just as amazing as they were, because they are. They're amazing people. They're amazing coaches. But it's okay to turn the page too. And I think it's a good time.
Yeah. I mean, the guy won a lot of games, obviously 7 Frozen Fours. And I remember when I got here to South Bend 25 years ago, the program was just, kind of just kind of just there. They would show little hints of promise, and they made a change and brought in Jeff Jackson. It's like, who is this guy? And it's like, it's amazing. He is 69 years old, and he reminds me a little bit of Gene Hackman because he has looked 69 for the better part of the last 19 years that he's been here.
He's had gray hair the whole time.
That's exactly. He has not changed much at all since he has been here. So
great point.
Yeah, the fact that he is 69 now means that he was 50 when he got here. So
saying something right there.
Yeah, like Gene Hackman, like when he was 45, he looked 70. When he was 70, he looks 7. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's the same with Jeff Jackson. Like the guy he's 69 years old and hasn't changed much, but over 600 Division I wins, which is amazing. The winningest coach in program history, all the Frozen Fours, 2-time national coach of the year. But yeah, I mean, it definitely, like I'm the same with you, not like deep into hockey guy, but he did have a very distinct style that was ever able to play for a while. And it just sounds like, sort of like speed and, bringing those things into the game at Notre Dame is kind of what they need. So hopefully, like the next guy is half as good as what Jeff Jackson was.
It's a former Notre Dame player.
Great career. Yeah.
It's a former Notre Dame player. So, he understands what this place is like and, all of those different things. So,
yeah.
We'll see what happens. Like I said, it's a young squad. They got talent there. Let's see what they can do.
Salty's asking how long the fencing coach has been at Notre Dame. They've actually
2014.
I was going to say they've made a change. I guess 2014. That's been 11 years, but somewhat recently because it was Janusz, what was it, Bednarek or something like that before the current coach. Do you remember that?
Good luck pronouncing the current coach's name. I'll just say that.
Yeah,
it's Gia Kvarlatskelia.
Yeah.
Kvaratskhelia.
The coach, again, like the coach before that was like Janusz Bednarski or something like. Because I remember I would be Pete LaFleur, who used to be the Notre Dame baseball SID or Old Boy Sluggo. He was also the fencing SID. So when I was doing Notre Dame baseball games on the radio, Pete and I would be on the road together, and Janusz would call Pete about something on the cell phone, and every time Pete would answer the phone, Janusz would go, "Pete, it's Janusz Bednarski," or what? I wish I could remember exactly what it. But like he would say his first and last name every time. Like there were 10 other Janushes running around at Notre Dame. Like he had to introduce himself first and last name all the time.
Well, I'm looking at the roster on the website, and I went back to 2014, and they don't have any of the coaches prior to Coach Gia showing up. So, which is disappointing. They got the roster, but they don't have the coaching staffs. So, yeah.
You're right, Peter LaFleur, DK. It was funny because Vince Vaughn, 2 movies in a row, his character's name was Jeremy Gray in Wedding Crashers. In Dodgeball, it was Peter LaFleur.
Those are both
people, and I know people of both of those names that Vince Vaughn played. In fact,
yes, that's right. That's hilarious.
Used to work with 2 guys who actually had those names back to back Vince Vaughn's movies. Yep, that's right. Fill in the blank. Dan Hurley going nuts over the weekend because a Creighton player had a breakaway dunk at the end of UConn's loss to the Blue Jays in the Big East tournament. Is blank.
Old school, I guess, is the best way to put it. Like it would annoy me because I'm old school, but the new school.
But would you need to go nuts about it? Would you need to run out on the floor yelling at everybody?
Is that what he did?
Yeah.
Just stop him. Just stop. Like you have 5 guys on the floor. They have 5 guys on the floor. Stop them. Like I don't know.
There's still time on the clock, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, dude, you just won 2 national championships.
Right. And guess what? That kid who dunked it doesn't care.
That's right.
He just won 2 national championships. He's
and
trying to beat you.
The Creighton coach apologized to him. It's like, I wouldn't be apologizing to you. You got nothing to apologize for. Dan Hurley just feels like a comet that's ready to burn out at any minute. He just runs so hot all the time. It's like, calm down, dude. You won back-to-back national championships. You won back-to-back national championships because 2 months ago, you were telling everybody you were the best coach in the world. So
there you go.
Like Like, chill out and coach your own team.
Yeah.
How about that?
100%.
So Robert Griffin III went on a recent Twitter rant about sports debate shows. Here's what he said. This is RG3. Debate shows have destroyed the way sports are covered. They prioritize creating drama, controversy, and sensationalism over substance to drive engagement, whether good or bad, at the cost of truth and integrity. He went on to it was a long rant about how debate shows are just gossip, and the main point that they have ruined the way that we talk about sports. So, Vince, do you buy or sell RG3's thesis?
Well, first of all, it's a huge sell, and there's a multitude of reasons why it's a huge sell for me. Okay. The first thing that came to my mind was, number one, what is sports? Sports is entertainment. Okay.
Right.
And the manner in which you cover sports is also entertainment. And people are entertained when people argue with each other. That just is what it is. The sports reporters have been around for a very, very long time. Since before RG3 was born, is my guess, by the way.
Probably right.
So this isn't like a new phenomenon that just showed up, these debates. And when did it become a prerequisite, if you're having a debate with somebody, to not use truth and integrity? Like, I don't understand that. Like, I've never lied when I'm trying to debate somebody about a sporting event. Like, I don't understand that, like his point on that. I don't understand his point on that. And when you're reporting on sports, it's okay to have a dissenting opinion. I don't understand why. And then when when one person has one opinion and one person has another opinion, they get to discuss it. You put a camera in their face and all of a sudden it's entertainment. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. And the market, gives you what the market bears. Like, there's an interest in these shows. They wouldn't still be on TV if fans weren't consuming them. And like, RG3 just comes off like a very thin-skinned, overly sensitive athlete to me. Obviously he was criticized to an extent when things went, south in Washington and stuff like that at the end of his pro career. To me, so I'm with you. This is a complete sell for me on the subject of these debate shows. To me, the real one that he needs to be coming at is the platform that he was using, to give his whole presentation, and that's Twitter. Like,
good point.
If I'm picking between Twitter and TV debate shows, Twitter is the real evil to me. There was a quaint time, Vince, not that long ago. You may remember it. It wasn't the 1950s. We all had our opinions about sports, and we just yelled at our TVs or threw our remote across the room, or
got an argument at a bar, or found a friend who had access to a radio station, and we did a show together. Like,
that's right.
That's what you did.
That's right. And only our friends and family knew what a dipstick you were, because of how, intense you were getting about it. But now Twitter is, like, some people kind of, as message boards started to become popular before Twitter even, that was a thing. But all of that has just spilled into the free domain of Twitter. Now, obviously RG3 is paying for his Twitter, because he gets literally like that much space to write this whole book that he wrote, on the subject. But it Twitter gave everyone, the need to let everyone else know how much they think they know, and, gave people the chance to spew their hate directly at the players and all that kind of stuff. So to me, Twitter is the one that's completely changed the way sports are covered. People don't even, like, literally, you don't even need to be like a TV guy. Doesn't need to be on TV to break a story. All he's got to do is pull out his thumbs and, tweet away, and he's got it. And it's far more hate-filled to me than any of the sports debate shows. Like, maybe some of the sports debate shows make it a little bit personal, but the Twitter stuff, people, again, like, they literally come right at the athletes and the players. So it's far worse to me than debate shows.
Oh yeah. Big time.
So the Cubs open the Major League Baseball season tomorrow morning against the Dodgers in Japan, 6 a.m. Eastern time. You in or out on the 6 a.m. open to the season, Vince?
it's funny because I'm on the fence about this one, and I need to pick a side because I watched a little bit of the Japan, because they've been playing two Japan teams, like both the Dodgers and the Cubs are over there in Japan right now, and they've had a couple of double headers in a row where the Cubs play one Japanese team and then the Dodgers play the other, then they flip-flopped, and I found myself watching some of those games, you know what I mean? And I thought that they were interesting, and taking the game to Japan, I think, is not a bad thing at all. It's a little strange, and I understand why they're doing it because of the time change and the travel and all that, to have two games to start the regular season, and then they're taking like a week more of spring training, and then they're coming back with more regular season games. So that's a little odd, but I get it. Like, I understand it. I'm going to buy it just because it's unique. I wouldn't buy the Cubs doing it every single season, right? Every single year. Am I going to get up at 6 a.m. to watch this? Probably not, but I might. Depends on what time I get to bed the night before, if I'm being perfectly honest. You know what I mean? Like, it was nice because the one game that I watched was actually on in the evening because it was obviously earlier. So it was more normal time than it was at 6 a.m. So if they could just get that part kind of fixed a little bit, I don't know what time it is in Japan. If you have an afternoon game here in the States or a night game or whatever.
Like if you could even push it back to 9 a.m. or something like that, would it be too late? I have no idea what the time is.
I don't either.
Like, but 6 a.m. is obviously very early. It's like, like the Olympics with time differences and stuff like that. And the fact that it is, I get it. You're going to Japan. You've got Ohtani going back to Japan. That that's part of the sell. It just stinks that this is, I guess it's not the official opening day for Major League Baseball, but it is still the first official games that are going to be played at Major League Baseball this season.
Right.
And they're going to be buried at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So
I just figured it out. So it's 7:12 a.m. right now. So 6 a.m. for us will be 7 p.m. for them.
Okay.
So they're doing it a normal start time locally, which is a 7 p.m. start, which of course makes sense, but it doesn't make sense for the people at home watching. Because that, by the way, that's a 3 a.m. start for Dodgers fans.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about how bad it was for the California fans. That's very true.
It's a 5 a.m. start for Chicago Cubs fans, and it's a 3 a.m. start for Dodger fans. We on the East Coast, I guess,
we actually have it best out of everybody.
It's just nuts.
All right,
which is nuts. So I don't know.
Fill in the blank. Jason Sudeikis has confirmed that season 4 of Ted Lasso is in the works, and it's blank that he's going to coach a women's team this season.
I felt
Jesse said, "Get up and quit complaining, old man."
Yeah, I thought that was funny. They really tied the show up pretty nicely at the end of season 3. I feel like this is extra. Like it just feels like a bit of a money grab, and I don't like saying that because I do like the show, and I'm going to watch it. Like, I will watch the show, but I don't like it. I don't, and not necessarily because he's coaching a women's team. It just feels like a new show now. It's like a spinoff.
Right.
Almost.
You're going to have different characters. I wonder who they'll probably like Brendan, like his sidekick, who's one of the writers. Yeah. Beard. Yeah. That's who it is. He and Sudeikis are the two creators. I feel like main creators, producer, writer, whatever. Sudeikis wanted to wrap up Ted Lasso. Like, he's the one who wanted to wrap it up. I think because he was worried about like dragging it on too long and just doing it for the sake of doing it, so they ended the storyline when they did and kept it fairly tight. And that's why I actually like this, because he stepped away, but now we get the character coming back, and you're going to get, like new characters, new circumstances and all that kind of stuff. So I actually like it. So like, if this gives him sort of like a fresh set of ideas, where he doesn't think that it's getting stale, I like the fact that he's bringing it back. And I think the women's angle makes sense because, like he was, he has been like big into like women's basketball, for example. Like, remember when he was going around with Sue Bird, he was at like the NCAA tournament and even regular season games. Like, he was at like a lot of the Caitlin Clark games. He went out to Albany last year for the tournament when we were out there. He was only at the Iowa games, of course, but he was actually at the Notre Dame UConn game with Sue Bird last year out there in stores. So like he's a fan of like women's basketball specifically. So I bet like through some of that and probably like talking to Sue Bird and some of the other players, I bet he's maybe come up with some of the ideas for what he's going to do. So I like it. I like the fact that it's coming back.
I can get on board with it because I will say it got stale there for a little bit, and then it ended.
The last season to me, it was very hit and miss.
Yeah,
I felt like
it ended with a flourish. I like the way it ended.
Yeah,
I'm very curious because they really hit home on the family aspect of him coming home, being with his family.
Where's he going to coach? Yeah,
like, are you just going to throw that away?
He was on the New Heights podcast. This is where he originally announced it with the Kelseys, Travis and Jason. And they asked him, was it going to be in England? Is it going to be in the States? And he's like, we've already revealed too much. So he didn't want to go any farther and say where exactly it was good. So maybe it will
Maybe it's going to be like a LA Galaxy or, well, that's a men's team. But you know what I mean? Like, coaching one of the MLS, the WMLS.
Gained all this fame in England, and now he comes back to the States maybe or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, again, I'm looking
forward to it. I mean, it's probably going to take 2 years before we actually see it, the way things work in that world. But I'm looking forward to it. Like, a chance to get more Ted Lasso is a good thing.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong.
We'll both at least check out what that season looks like, and if we don't like it, we don't have to go back to it. So
fair.
But I'm excited. I'm excited. I was fired up when I heard that over the weekend. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. Appreciate you being here, as always. We will. We've got spring football practice starting Wednesday.
That's right.
The original date we were given was the 18th. So anyone who still has that in mind, it's Wednesday, the 19th.
Changed it.
But we'll be out there. Will you be coming to practice at all? Are you going to be able to get away? Okay.
Not the day ones. Like, I'm hoping April 5th.
We'll have some Marcus Freeman post-practice audio because he'll have a press conference that day. So Vince and I will have some of his thoughts on the Wednesday show.
Yep.
Jesse and I will be in tomorrow.
Yep.
And kind of have our final pre-spring teaser show.
Yes.
We got that going on.
Nice.
Tomorrow.
Oh, you already updated the sheet. I was going to get in there and update the sheet.
Yes.
Okay.
Vince had a bunch of changes that he was throwing today.
Hey, Northern Indiana weather. We'll do that to you.
It's crazy, man. It was like beautiful last week, and we woke up this morning. There was frost on the windshields.
Dude, did you look out your window yesterday? Like it was
snowing for a while.
Hard.
I know.
Yesterday. Now, luckily, none of it really stuck. But the day before, so Saturday, I'm walking around in a t-shirt, and then Sunday it's snowing. Like who knows? And then tomorrow it's going to be 65 and sunny. So whatever. Like let's go. Let's roll. Welcome to Northern Indiana.
So Brock Sheehan, somebody was asking if they've named a replacement. I can't remember his name. Brock Sheehan, former Notre Dame player.
Former Notre Dame hockey player.
Yeah.
That was announced, I think, at the beginning of the season. Like it was always kind of understood. I don't know, like he has named a staff or any of that kind of stuff, but the head coach has been in. And I think Brock was on the staff this year.
Yeah.
As well. It's kind of like a transition, kind of a situation.
USMA was 87 was saying we need a longer show. I mean, if you want to mail back us up, we can always do a longer show, but that's on you guys. But he also says snow is better than tornadoes. I will agree with that.
Fair.
Coming from Kansas, where tornadoes are very prevalent. A buddy of mine in high school had the house, the roof ripped off his house by a tornado.
Ooh.
That was.
I'm good not living in Tornado Alley. I'll pass on that.
Yeah, we were at the NCAA tournament in Oklahoma City several years ago. This is my first stint doing the radio, and we were eating this is with women's basketball, but we were eating at an IHOP, and the tornado sirens went off, and we all had to go to like the meat locker, whatever I guess it's an IHOP, so it might not have technically
The
been a
walk.
meat
We
locker,
call it
but
the walk-in.
The walk-in.
walk-in.
There you go.
Yeah.
I knew there was another name
Yeah.
for it. So yeah, we had to go to the walk-in for like 15 or 20 minutes, freezing, waiting for the tornado to pass.
20 minutes in the walk-in. That's kind of
Yeah.
legit. Like
It was chilly.
Yeah, I bet it was.
chilly
I bet it was.
So USMA wants to know the biggest surprise in the recruiting experience with your son.
It shouldn't have been a surprise based on how long I've kind of followed it to a degree, covering Notre Dame and everything, but just how not to the point coaches are. They just try to keep you hanging on.
Leave it as vague as possible.
Yeah, and it's very frustrating. Like, if you're not interested, just freaking tell us so that we can move on and not get our hopes up about things. I say because it's like a family. I mean, recruiting is a family thing.
Sure.
I was amazed at how many coaches were just not honest about things. And it was very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. And I get it. Like, you don't want to cut ties with somebody just in case like your number one option falls through or something. I get it, but then just tell me that. Like, to be honest, like, hey man, you're third on our board. We're gonna offer this guy, and he doesn't come. We're gonna offer this guy, and maybe we'll get down to you. Like, I would appreciate that more than the subterfuge that we would get from people. That was super frustrating. And then they ghost you. They don't even answer you. Like when you try to reach out.
Dude, that's BS.
Like, that pisses me off. I'm not going to lie. It pissed me off. And so it's not a good surprise, USMA 87. It was a piss me off moment. But in the end, he found a staff and a program that was very honest with him and was upfront about everything. And that was refreshing. And it's one of the many reasons that he chose to go to Hillsdale. So,
silver lining, right?
Yes, sir.
It's all silver linings.
That's right.
All right, well, that's going to do it for today. Have a great rest of your day. Sun's shining outside right now, and we will talk to you tomorrow. We'll talk more football tomorrow.
That's right.
All week long on IB Nation Sports Talk.